Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, a podcast where we're seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBrun, and we are here for another exciting, invigorating, and enthralling week for the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. Before we get into the topic, as always, we want to say thank you to all of our supporters, those of you that have been rocking with us, either you're day one or even those that are brand new to the podcast. Whether you're subscribed, you support us via YouTube, or you follow us on Facebook on our Facebook page there at Unscripted Authentic Leadership, or you follow us there on Instagram at Unscripted Leadership, or whether you're one of our streaming supporters that stream us on one of our major podcast platforms that we have been afforded to, whether that be via Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, Intune, iHeart, etc. We say thank you. Listen, before we get into the topic, we have an exciting topic this week that we are definitely excited about. John, how you doing, man?
Doing great. It's been a good week, productive.
Yeah.
Excited to do this episode, and thanks for everybody who's been listening, and thanks for our guests these last 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
It's been amazing. Starting having the guest thing and having people on to hear their stories, and if you hear their stories, you go back and listen. Share them with your friends. I think it'll really help some people.
Absolutely. It's me and John back in the saddle again this week, but as John alluded to, we've been in a Rise Up series that we've been doing, interviewing different people and getting their stories of those that may have had a rocky start or started behind the goalpost, but now you look at them and their story has turned into a success story. They turn their failures into learning lessons and their mistakes into priority lessons so everyone else can learn from them. And if you're interested in being a guest for our Rise Up series, you can email us at unscriptedleadership at gmail.com. Email us. The email address is unscriptedleadership at gmail.com. Listen, this week we're going to get into the topic, and we're talking about death to external validation. And I think that this is a pertinent topic. I think this is a relevant topic as far as leadership and just any walk of life, even if you don't consider yourself as a quote unquote leader, even though we know here on the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast that everyone is a leader in their own respective right. This whole idea of validation, but specifically external validation, needing that approval from others that does not come from yourself. And so we're going to get into this topic, and I want to lay the foundation as always when we get into the topic so our audience knows where we're going and what we're talking about. And so external validation is basically the sense that an individual or a group of individuals needs approval, and it's often rooted in vanity and insecurity. Now, I want to make the disclaimer that we are talking about external validation, not just the general term of validation, but external validation. And I think that's important that we know that distinction, that by nature, we all want to be validated in some point or area of our life just because of the makeup of who we are as human beings, of the relationship and the connectivity that we were designed to have. That's not necessarily what I'm saying that we need to die out to or that needs to come to an end. I'm talking about specifically, or we're talking about rather, the external validation that requires that you don't have a sense of self-esteem or a sense of self-worth if someone else doesn't give you an attaboy, if someone else doesn't give you a pat on the back, if someone else doesn't give you their stamp of approval. You feel like you cannot move forward in life. You cannot move forward in your purpose and in your destiny unless someone gives you the green light and the approval and they put their stamp of okay on it. Then you don't feel like you can move forward. And it's often rooted in our insecurities. And I think today we will expose those, and I think we'll be all better for it. And so it can be as simple as when you think about it, we all had the need for external validation. It can be as simple as you tell a joke and you feel like you need someone to laugh at your joke. right? And if your joke is not well received,
That's
you're
me. It is. Full transparency.
yeah,
Sorry.
like
It's,
so
I didn't
like
think about it till you said it.
yeah, no, that's good, bro. Because I want the audience to really understand that I don't want this to seem like this is something complicated or something deep. It's something that we all have dealt with. Like I was saying, that someone doesn't laugh at your joke and it's not well received, your self esteem and your self worth kind of takes a hit, and so it can be seen in other areas as you always need someone to give you a compliment. You always need someone to tell you how great you are. Love me, love me, love me. And it's rooted out of selfishness and self attention. That when you remove all of those things, if someone does not give you a compliment, someone does not give you that self validation, that external validation that you feel that you need, but you don't need, then you feel like you are stuck and you cannot move forward. And I think about how many people are really stuck in their life right now, bro. How many people that have a dream and they let it die because they shared their dream and they shared their vision with even a close family member or a close friend, and that close family member, that close friend didn't give them the validation that they thought that they would get. And so they put the dream away and they put their vision away. They stopped writing the book and they stopped writing their ideas down, and they stopped going after the business and being the entrepreneur in the business, the leader that they were intended to be, because someone didn't say yes and someone didn't say okay. One of my favorite shows, and I'm sure it's one of your favorite shows that I like to watch, is Shark Tank. And when these people that go into the Shark Tank, these different entrepreneurs, it can be from various ages. They have kids, they have teenagers, they have adults, they have mid adults, they have older people that go in there, and people that have these ideas, and they go into the Shark Tank with these investors who are already billionaires and millionaires and have these they're corporate giants, and they can be intimidating. And they have these entrepreneurs that go and they what they call the Shark Tank, and they go in there and they pitch their idea for their business to these investors. And so they say that I have such and such company. I have a company that we make honey, and they tell them about why they should invest in. They say, I'm seeking $200,000 for a 20% stake in my company. Now, you'd be surprised that even though to the entrepreneur, it may seem like this is the greatest idea in the world, it may seem like this is the greatest thing ever known to mankind, but you get it from somebody else's perspective, that here's your dream and your vision, and you listen to the shark's feedback, sometimes you could say, wow, that's kind of harsh. That's kind of they're kind of to the point. They don't have the empathy and the sympathy and the grace that you're looking for. But you'll see those entrepreneurs that are determined and don't need the self validation, that I'm coming to you not to affirm me, not to self validate me, not to give me the stamp of approval. But when I have a dream and when I have a vision, I'm saying, if you want to go along with me on this ride, and if you decide not to go along with me on this ride, that's okay. I'm going to keep my foot on the gas pedal. I'm not going to hit the brake, and I'm not going to put it in park. But then you have those other entrepreneurs, and they're just crushed. They can't believe that someone couldn't see the vision the way they see their vision, and someone didn't have the same perspective, and someone didn't give them that validation. And so they stop what they're doing and they stop their dream, and they go back to their 9 and 5. They go back to their work life and they go back to their misery because they didn't get that external validation that they felt that they should have received. But I want our audience to know today, you do not need validation from other people to keep going forward. Deaf to external validation. I want us to be intentional about that, because it is something that if you don't let it die, it'll keep popping back up. It'll keep popping back up. That you may suppress it, you may put it down for a little while, that need and that want for validation. But if you don't kill that and bury that, it'll pop itself back up at the most inopportune times, to where you'll find yourself doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I believe that's the definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And so you find yourself in a cycle 5-10 years, and you find yourself making excuses and blaming other people because you needed that external validation for someone else, and when it was your dream, it was your vision, not someone else's. Bro, speak to this whole point of external validation, of what it means to you, and give us your perspective on external validation.
Well, I'd like to just drop the mic after that.
Bro.
That and just go with that. But you mentioned Shark Tank. It's funny because I don't, if everybody's probably familiar with the company Ring, right?
Yeah,
That's who a lot of you have your doorbells from and other significant items now throughout your house, but primarily the doorbell with the camera. We use in my company office. We use that. I have family members that use it. That guy went on Shark Tank, and he tried to talk to them about Ring, and they thought it wouldn't work. They thought it was
that's so
crazy,
good, bro. So good.
right? And they went on there. So even people who have had financial success and a lot of other business success, they don't always see what you see. He could have easily gone home and said, "Hey, I mean, Mark Cuban doesn't think this is good. Barbara doesn't think it's good. Damon doesn't think it's good. All the rest of them, right?"
Right,
He's like, "Oh, this is. I just might as well start over." He didn't. He kept pushing on, and now he is actually one of the hosts on the show from time
right.
to time, investing in other companies, right?
Yep.
They sort of say, first time someone was on in the tank and now is hosting, but what they failed to tell you is that nobody invested. People might have come back and invested. I don't know that, but on that episode, he was booted out. He
Correct.
was shown the
Correct.
door. But yeah, people need validation often because they're just not comfortable in their own skin.
That's good.
You know, we all need and seek significance. The primary reason that most millennials leave their company is not even from lack of money or because more money is available. It's because often when they're interviewed, like exit interviewed, it's because they didn't feel like they were making an impact or had any significance. That's the primary reason for exiting and leaving to another company. And if I get a hair spiritual with you, our value, if you are seeking validation from other people, it's because your value is coming from the wrong source,
That's good.
right? So me personally, mine comes from my creator, God, right?
Yeah.
And I know that I am the kid of a king. And if you think about that, if you are the child of a king, right? That means you have already a place for you in a kingdom, right?
Yeah.
And understanding that should increase your self-worth. And if your self-worth, if you have that self-worth, then you should understand that your value doesn't come from what everybody else thinks, right?
That's
It doesn't
right.
come from what everybody else wants you to say. It becomes from whose you are, right? So if you begin to see yourself let me say it again. If you see yourself not needing the others to tell you that you're special or you have value, right? And just following your true north is basically what I'm trying to say. So a lot of people get their validation on social media,
Right.
and the problem with that is you can literally post anything and get likes. So
Yep.
so it doesn't matter whether you're correct or not.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is going to give you an attaboy. So I saw somebody posted, vaccines should never be mandatory for COVID. This is whatever. This is ridiculous, and everybody's sharing it and liking it. That's right. No vaccines for me. And then I saw someone else a little bit later posted, not related,
Mm-hmm.
vaccines should be 100% mandatory. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. And people are like, yeah, that's right. Share, likes. Guys, I don't know. I have my own opinion. But
Yeah.
obviously there's a truth in there somewhere. I'm not here to tell you what that is, but it doesn't matter. The
Right.
point is both of them had validation from other sources, and one of them's wrong apparently. And so you can't both be correct exactly on that, by those statements. Maybe both are wrong, but seeking the likes and validation from that, the problem with social media is social media is Sports Center, right?
Correct.
It's the highlight reel.
It's a highlight reel.
It's the play of the day,
Yep.
right? It's your best moments put on there for everybody to see, and then we see those amazing moments. We post stuff. I just posted a bunch of family pictures. Everybody said so many nice things, and obviously it was well received. Loved it. Thank you so much for complimenting my kids, so forth. But the difference is, while we appreciate it, I don't feel more valuable or less valuable because of the nice comments. So it's okay to post things. You just can't let that steer you and make your decisions.
Man, I think that was so good, especially the point you brought up about social media, because you have people that have literally committed suicide because they didn't get that external validation from a like, from
Mm-hmm.
a share, from a heart, from a comment. And if you look at the studies um, and the scientific studies on um, social media and the endorphins that people get released from their body when they get um, the like and the share, it's the same feeling that a drug addict gets when they get high. And if you don't get that, you're going craving for something else. And so this whole external validation piece is something that we are struggling at as a society, because, like you said, that was good. It's Sports Center, and the problem with the highlight is that once the highlight is gone, then what? Where do we go from here? We are thriving off of moments, but we don't have momentum. And the difference is a moment is temporary, momentum can be sustained. When you're thriving off of moments, you cannot be sustained off of that. You're always looking for that next thing and that next high, that next chase, and that next validity, the next sign off, and this next signature to someone to sign off on your life. And how crazy is that for you to give that power over your life to someone else? I mean, really think about that, that your happiness is based
Amen.
upon someone else's approval.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to operate in your family and your gift and your creativity. Many of us can't think straight unless we check our phone to see if we've been validated by our last post. That was so good what you said, that even if your post didn't get one like, you're still going to go home and be a great father. You're still going to go home and be a great husband, because your validation does not stop me in my acceleration to move in who I am and what I've been called to do. And I think that this whole external validation piece, it has to do with our mindset, bro. It has to do with our mindset. Our mind is the center of our being. And we know everything starts in the mind. The difference between someone that needs external validation opposed to someone who does not need that affirmation, that approval, is the mindset. People that generally need external validation have a fixed mindset. And we referenced it. I'm not sure what episode it was, but we talked about having that mindset that was boxed in, that was locked in. And I think we had referenced starting about the pandemic and how corporations had to change their mindset and leaders had to change their mindset from going from a physical space to a virtual space. And even churches and restaurants had to reimagine and recreate how they went about their business and how they went operated in their infrastructure, but it was not possible to do that if you had a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is a person that gets upset when things get difficult. And when we say difficult in 2020, it's really a subjective term, because difficult can be literally, some people say life is difficult today because I did not get the response I wanted or desired on social media. But I'm talking about the difficulties of life, that when you have those challenges, it seems like your attitude moves you out to seek something easier. When you have that external validation mindset that you need to be validated by someone externally, you will move from place to place, and you'll find that that is a person that has a life of instability. And so we can look in the last 3 years, you've had about 10 jobs. You cannot keep on the same course. You stop and you start, you stop and you start. You cannot continue to have that continual progress because you have that fixed mindset, rather than someone who says, you know what, I'm not looking for external validation. I find my validation from my creator. I find my validation from who I am and my identity. I have a growth mindset. I don't have a fixed mindset. I don't have one that's so tight and so boxed in. I have a growth mindset where I don't always expect to be great at things right away. I don't always expect things to be great because I understand that life is life. and one day life can be going great, and at the drop of a hat, life can shift on me. But because I have a growing mindset, I have the ability to adjust. I have the ability to adapt. I'm like a chameleon. Whatever atmosphere, whatever environment you put me in, I'm able to adapt because I have that growth mindset. And so the process of learning excites me. The process of challenges excite me rather than being annoyed and rather than having feelings of inadequacy and I cannot do it. You get excited because you have that internal validation that no matter what comes my way on the outside, I know on the inside I have greater in me. The makeup, my DNA of who I am. I don't have give up in me. I don't have quit in me. I don't have a loser in me. I don't have I'm just going to throw in the towel in me. I'm going to keep on going because I have that internal validation. I have that growth mindset instead of the fixed mindset. Bro, kind of talk about the difference between someone that has that growth mindset versus the fixed mindset.
Yeah, so it's funny because my son actually came home one day from school, was talking about, Dad, I learned all about growth mindset versus fixed mindset, you know what I mean? Stuff
Okay.
like that. It was cool. So yeah, so similarly, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing it's important to understand is you hit the growth mindset and fixed mindset really well, and you said something on there actually that I want to touch on, and basically you talked about finding your identity in your in within knowing yourself.
Right.
I think of something along those lines.
Right.
It made me think of something I thought was important. People, you have to find your own. You have to understand. You have to know your truth, right?
Yeah. Whoa.
What is your true north,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you require validation from others, that means that you cannot actually stay on your truth and your true north, right? You
Good.
actually have to waver off of it just to get their approval. You can't just do what you think is correct. You can't. You need to be able to make decisions based on the merit of the decision, not on what other people think, right?
Yeah.
Not based on how other people are going to feel. I'm not saying be a jerk, but staying true to the truth is more important than making people feel better or making people like you. When you want to be a leader, often you have to stick to what you know is true and often unpopular.
Good.
And so you will not always get attaboys when leading, but when you know something's the right direction, you have to stay on it. So anyways, I just want to say that. But yeah, what you said on the growth versus fixed was perfect. I mean, I don't know how to say it any better.
Yeah, man. I think I think you just put a whole nother episode topic because know your truth.
Yeah.
We don't know, and this is our show, so we can say what we want to say on here.
Yeah.
We live in a society, nobody knows what truth is. You brought up the point about the vaccine, bro. If I take it, there's a consequence because this truth over here is telling me this. If I don't take it, there's another consequence because truth is telling me this. And every day that you wake up, you turn on social media, you turn on the news, you open up your laptop, you open up your phone, you open up your tablet, and everybody has a truth. And so if you're looking at all these truths and you're trying to decipher where you get your truth from, if you've got to filter through all the trash, all the policies, all the politicism, and all of the agendas, truth can be hard to find if you're looking at it from an external place.
Got to have a foundation.
You got to have a foundation. You have to have a foundation. And the reality is that your foundation cannot come from anybody else. It has to be from inside of you. It has to be based on what's important to you, not what's important to the followers that follow you on Instagram, not what's important to the people that are liking and commenting on your Facebook status. And well, I'll put this truth out there because this truth is popular. You just said it. As leaders, the reality is that we see that when you really stand up for what you believe in, you will face opposition. It is inevitable. Even if you go with the popular route, even if you go with the popular mantra, you will still face opposition.
Yeah,
And
I'll close Timmy all in. When we did our first episode on diversity,
yeah.
I saw a few followers leave. Right? We were
Oh,
gonna stop doing the episodes because a few people left. I don't care
oh,
that much, right?
oh,
Like I
I
didn't do
love
this
it.
for followers, so
That's right.
that's just cluing you in. And I'm being serious when he says this. So
Yes,
we weren't
sir.
gonna be, oh, we lost 5 last week after that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so they didn't see things the way we saw them. That's fine.
Right.
So
Exactly. But we kept on going. And here's the thing, and I can say this for the both of us. I believe John and I knew that before we did it. We were
yeah,
intentional about it. We understood that. But because we understand our purpose and our vision, and this show is not about how many followers we have, how many subscribers we have. This show was built upon a foundation that we wanted to get our truth out. Period. We came together because we wanted to get our truth out. Truth is in the statement, it is in the name of our podcast, authentic.
mm-hmm.
Authentic leadership. And so when you get on this podcast, you may hear something that may challenge you. Our goal, our aim is never to upset anyone. It is never to offend anyone, but it is to challenge you. That's why we always start every episode and we end every episode by saying this is a podcast where we are seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. Whenever you're seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand, that's a point of tension. Because while leading change, you will have misunderstandings from other people. While also trying to understand, you will have people that will not understand where you're coming from because they don't understand and agree in the direction that you're trying to lead them in. And so we understand as leaders, and I understand, and I'm not saying that I've mastered it, but I've become okay with you don't like or you don't agree. And that's okay. That's okay with me because if you're not okay with it, you will live your life trying to please people that will never be pleased. You will live your life trying to get people to agree with you on one thing and you agree with them on that, and then they'll find something else to not agree with you on. And the reality is you will not go through life if you're looking for a circle of friends and a circle of safety, that you will only surround yourself with people that agree with you. You will go through this life alone. If you look at the people that I surround myself with, John and I don't agree with everything. We do this
Yeah.
show. We don't agree with everything. That's the reality. We don't always see things the same way. But you know what I don't tell John? I'm not your friend anymore, bro, because you didn't give me that external validation. I'm going to delete you off of my Facebook. I'm going to be petty. We've got to really grow up. We've got to grow up and we've got to mature to the place to where we say, you know what? It's okay if you don't validate me. It's okay if you don't agree with me because you are not the source of my strength. You are not the source of my creativity. You are not the source of the dream and the vision. You're not the reason why I get up and go to work. You're not the reason why I get up and grind. You're not the reason why I get up and do what I do. I do it for me and I do it for my family. I don't do it for external likeness. And so that's why I want us to really it's critical to understand that external piece because, as I said before, and John alluded to it, we all inherently seek validation in some point. The problem is it is the requirement of it. The difference is it's okay to have it. It will be great to have it, but if I don't have it, that's okay as well. The issue comes in to where you say it's a requirement. Because when it becomes a requirement and it becomes an external need that you have to have, then you are at the mercy at someone else. When it's external validation, that's the exact problem. It's external. Because anytime you put your self-worth in the hands of someone else or something outside of yourself, you're at their mercy. I want us to really understand that. That's why when we see people, and not just celebrities, people in general every day, that you can be bought. You can't buy me. You know why? Because I'm not at your mercy. You cannot write me off. I'm not at the hands. I'm not you're not my master. And we talk about this whole piece of slavery. Slavery is more than just the 1800s, the 1700s, the black and white. Slavery is a mindset to where I am enslaved to your opinion of me. Many of us are slaves right now. We don't have chains on us physically. We're not behind bars. We're not out in the field. And this has nothing to do with your race. It has to do with your mindset. You're enslaved to someone else because their opinion is your master. Whatever they say of you, whatever they think of you, that's what you'll do. If they don't like the clothes that you wear, you'll change your outfit. You'll go broke trying to appease someone else. And so now you're at the mercy of someone else. And I want us to really think about that. How many of us are at the mercy and the hands of other people because external validation is a requirement? John, you got something you want to say, bro?
That was so good. It's true. And I know we talk a lot about social media, and that's just because that seems to be one of the easy things to point out. And it seems to be most people's addiction. I encourage everybody to watch a documentary called The Social Dilemma. I watched it not too long ago. I don't know if you've seen it. It basically talks about, it interviews people who are involved with like social media early on, and even people who were high up in some of these companies like Facebook and so forth, talking about how they were developed and are developed, and how and the way that they go about creating this product that we all like to use, but how it's created for you to have an addiction, to always need to come back, right? And that's why the likes and so forth were in there. They literally have psychologists that they work with these companies to teach the developers how the mind works and how to get people coming back for more and more and more. There's a reason for it. There's a reason, and it's a very interesting. It's a really, 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 really good documentary. I just watched it a few weeks ago. Highly encourage it. It's called The Social Dilemma. You can find it on like Amazon Prime or something. But anyways, So on that same note, I 100% agree. I don't have a lot to add to that. It just, guys, you have to just be comfortable within yourself. You have to be okay with making the right choices for the right reasons and not giving a rip about what anybody else thinks. Until you do, you're going to be held hostage. You're always going to be worried about, a lot. You know how many people came to me and asked me about when we started our podcast? A lot, right? It's like, how did you start it? We just started, man. I mean, you mean like they didn't mean like what platforms. Anybody can Google it, but they're like, I don't know if I could post stuff on there. I mean, was I a little bit like, all right, let's see how this goes? A little bit, but not so worried about whether you liked it or not, just whether I was putting out value for everybody to listen to. Right. That was the focus. Like, how can I grow myself to be able to put more stuff out for everybody to feed off of? Not, will everybody give it a like, right? We do appreciate the likes. We appreciate the shares. But the main reason for that is so that other people can see it, not so that I don't look at how many likes we got or shares. It's good when I see the message being spread and content being made available for others. There's a huge difference. And so, yes, but the biggest thing I tell people, just go do it. Who cares whether someone likes or doesn't like your whatever video you put out on Facebook or YouTube? Like, if they don't like it, they'll never see it again. It doesn't matter. That's right. Most people don't go on there and just hate on your video, but it happens sometimes. But moving on. So, yeah.
Exactly. And you talked about that addiction and people's response. We have to be careful, bro, because sometimes if people don't respond the way we think that they should respond, we take it personal. And sometimes their response has nothing to do with us. In fact, situations almost always have to do more with what's going on the inside of them than it has to do with you. Everything, we live in this PC culture. And don't get me wrong, because any of you that have been watching this podcast, we are real and we are honest of how all aspects of leadership. We've talked about the feelings. We've talked about empathy and sympathy. So don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But there comes a point to where we have to stop getting so personal, to where we have a chip on our shoulder on everything someone says, everything someone does. We take it personal to the point to where if you don't give me the right response, then you don't like me, you don't love me. The reality is I could have been having a bad day and I didn't even see what you posted. I may have saw what you posted and I just kept on scrolling. Incidentally, I didn't even like it. So you cannot always assume that their response has something to do with you personal. Something they could be going through something themselves on the inside of them that they didn't give you that necessary response that you are looking for. But if your validation is not dependent upon that external validation anyways, then it wouldn't bother you. And so either way, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and your self-worth shouldn't be diminished because you didn't get the response that you need. Similarly, just the polar opposite, your self-confidence and your self-esteem and your self-worth shouldn't be boosted just because they gave you the response that you needed. So it works both ways. If you give it to me, that's great. I still know who I am. If you don't, that's great. I still know who I am because my validation comes from the inside of me. And I think John and I both hit points. I had notes on here talking about why we seek validation from others, and we've covered it. The lack of confidence, need for acceptance, sense of worth, sense of identity, overall affirmation. And we've got to stop looking for these things because when we do this, it makes us seem insecure. It makes us seem insecure. It makes us look needy, and it limits your self-growth. If that baby bird, when a mother bird has a baby, she feeds the baby mouth to mouth. She feeds the baby mouth to mouth and puts them in a nest, puts them in a warm place. But after the certain maturity and after the baby matriculates to a certain point, to before they're an adult, the mother, she takes the nest and she starts putting hard things in the nest to make the baby uncomfortable. And eventually she'll kick the baby literally out of the nest because she understands that this baby will never fly if I keep feeding it mouth to mouth and if I keep tending to its needs on a one-on-one basis to the point towards limiting the baby chick's growth. And that's exactly how we ought to be as leaders, that if we're always depending on someone to feed us, to feed our egos, feed our self-esteem, feed our confidence, we are limiting our self-growth because when that source is removed, where is your growth? If you're always depending on someone externally to feed into you, then you are really in a bad shape and in a bad place. And so instead of having that external validation as leaders, we should have self-validation. We should have self-validation. In other words, I recognize my own worthiness. I recognize my own legitimacy. It's not pride, it's not cockiness, but I am confident. And I think when we see people that are confident, we are quick to accuse them of, oh, he's cocky or he's arrogant or she's arrogant. No. When you get to a place, John, when you really know who you are, people may accuse you of being cocky. People may accuse you of being arrogant. But when you know who you are, I'd rather you say that about me than say, you know what, Lafayette don't know who he is. Lafayette don't have no self-esteem. He don't know who he is. He's always searching for his identity and over here and over here. No, I recognize who I am and I recognize whose I am. Like you already said, bro, that I have self-validation. I can affirm myself in the mirror. Your will be great. I don't care how bad it looks. I don't care how dark it looks. You will be great, and you have greatness on the inside of you. And so, self-validation is a quality that I would venture to say that if you're going to be a successful leader, you've got to learn how to validate yourself. Not looking for validation from other people, not external validation, but self-validation. John, talk to us about that self-validation.
What's left? Oh my gosh. I don't know how, if I was, there was no social media as I was a teenager. It didn't come out until I was in college.
Yeah.
And even at that, there was no likes and stuff. It wasn't that accessible. It wasn't on cell phones. Thank God. So I was already developing as an adult when that whole thing came around, but it doesn't mean it doesn't become addictive, right? There's been times I'm like, wow, this got so many likes. That's great. But I look back, I'm like, doesn't matter, right? Um, some people, I often find people who, and it's funny you said people say, oh, he's arrogant. A lot of
Hmm.
people a lot of people confuse somebody's swagger for arrogance and so
Because you
forth.
got
And
the
it,
swag I got.
yeah, and what's funny is you can get frustrated about that guy's swag, but
Yeah.
in his mind, he doesn't care. So I can tell you that. And so it's not that some people may be overly confident, but I'd rather someone be overly confident than have a really bad self-image.
Yeah.
Now, some people's overconfidence is compensating for a bad self-image, but that's just a whole nother thing. Most people who are truly confident, they're not necessarily loud, obnoxious, or anything like that. They just are able to walk with their head up. They're able to
That's right.
look you in the eye. They don't mind telling you the truth when it's required. They don't have to talk too much. They're fine listening to you. All those kind of things.
Yeah.
And as I grew up personally, I remember having a low self-image. I don't know that it was any one person's fault. I just always felt inferior. And when I became a young adult, probably about the age of 20, 21, somewhere in there, I was introduced to self-help materials. And this is before I even started reading like the Word and so forth.
Sure.
And so that was my first introduction to people explaining like, hey, you have value. It doesn't come from everybody else. And here's some things you can do to make yourself feel better. And here's some things you can do so you can present yourself better, talk to people better, all these things. They're basically called self-help books. There's a whole section in any library you ever want to go to, or
Yeah.
even in the bookstore or online for free. So when people ask often, like, they're probably questions like, how can I get rid of that? And it's not, you can't get rid of it by deleting your social media. That might help a little bit, but you
Nope.
can't, because you're still going to seek it other ways.
Yep.
Lafayette had alluded to people laughing at your jokes. I still, to this day, I love it when people laugh at my jokes. I will tell them all day long.
Yeah.
But I was always told I was the funny guy, so it's like it's part of your self-image. But at the same time, I laugh at mine more than anybody else laughs at my jokes. So I just think they're funny. What
There
can
you
I
go.
say? Or I wouldn't tell them. But as I started into this journey into personal, always growing myself and improving myself, I realized that I'm better than I thought I was, as far as like I had more value than I ever realized. And when you can't give something that you don't have, right? You can't give $1 to somebody if you don't have $1. Well, you can't give value if you don't have value, right? Or you can't, you need to basically always fill your cup up so you can pour it out. And you do
Yeah.
that. I guess this would segue into his book, but you do that
Perfect.
by continually growing yourself, reading, listening to podcasts, listening to anything that's positive, that will fill you up and help you improve, and turning off the negativity. Your mind will never forget anything. So if you put in bad images and bad media and all these bad things online that you could be staring at and so forth, when you put those in your head, it never leaves. Your brain is a computer and it downloads it. It's never gone, right? But you
Yeah.
can dilute it. You can't delete it, but you can dilute it with positive. Everybody's put bad, dumb things in their head. You just have to start putting more good than bad, and tuning out the bad as much as possible. Live in your own bubble. And that would help you feel way more confident about yourself. You'll start to understand that, hey, I know things, and I can give value to this world.
Bro, that was good. That was excellent. And I love that line. You cannot give what you don't have. You can't give value if you don't have value. And when you said live in your own bubble, I think that many of us need to really tap into this aspect of the pandemic. We need to self quarantine within ourselves. I'm not saying necessarily lock yourself in a room, but I'm saying mentally self quarantine and do a self inventory to see who you really are. What's your makeup? What's your DNA? What are the areas that I can improve in where I don't need validation because I know who I am? And here it is. We all are continually growing and we all are becoming. Becoming. That is the read of our week. this week by Michelle Obama. And many of you, this is not about a political affiliation, whether you like her or not. I would challenge you to read this book. I was challenged in many areas. This is not a book about policies. This is not a book about Democrat or Republican at all. This is a book for all people, all races, all ages, male and female, because we all are becoming, we all are continuing that growth and that path of self growth, self worth, and self improvement to be who God has ultimately called us to be. Listen, this has been another great episode, another great topic. I have so many more notes, but we are out of time and we don't want to belabor your patience. I know John probably has more. Maybe we'll do a part 2 to this another time. But listen, we want to continue to say thank you to those who are supporting us and those who are following us on Facebook. Please go there and support. Like John said, we don't do this for the likes or the comments, but we do this so the message can get out and the content can be shared so someone can be inspired, someone can be motivated, someone can be blessed, someone can be invigorated. If we can get just one person to be blessed and inspired by our content, I think that we both could say that we've done a job well done, and that is our mission, is one person at a time to inspire you to be the leader that God has called you to be. And we say that every week, and that's not just a cliche. We genuinely believe that. That is the fiber of our mission here. That is the fiber of our DNA and our makeup of this podcast, is that you be who God has called you to be. And so we thank you for your continued support. You can follow us there on Facebook. You can also follow us on Instagram at Unscripted Leadership. You can subscribe to us there on YouTube. Those of you that will stream this podcast, you can stream it on any major podcast platform: Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, iHeartRadio, Intune, etc. And once again, if you're interested in being in our Rise Up series, this is not something that we've just done for a month or a couple of weeks. This is something that we will continue to do. We want you to email us there. The email address is unscriptedleadership@gmail.com. unscriptedleadership@gmail.com. We are glad we will be glad to host you and to have you on the podcast so you can share with us how you move from external validation to self-validation, and how you were able to turn your story that may have started off rough and rugged. You may have came from the bottom, and now you are living your best life. Listen, I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBron. We are the host of the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. And as always, we are here to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide. Until next week, we pray that you be the leader that God has called you to be. God bless you.